So today is going to be, let's go ahead and let you know, it's going to be random. If my message today had to pass a homiletics test, I would fail miserably. But I'm not in school, so I don't care. But I will do due diligence with the text. Ephesians chapter 3 is where you can find me. Ephesians chapter 3. Like Glenn said, we're planting a church in Monrovia, California. We're so excited about what God is doing there. I've got a good friend of ours that's helping us with worship. My man Aaron Hoffman is hanging out with me today. So I'm just glad to be here, glad to be in this season of church planning and excited about what God is going to do. So whenever y'all think about me, think about Monrovia, think about churches, say a prayer for us as we seek to build a church that will reflect God's glory in Monrovia, California. It's to that end that I want to talk about the church today in Ephesians chapter 3. Let me just put a disclaimer here. I could throw a pin and just land on any passage in the book of Ephesians and preach on the church. I feel like this whole book is the manifesto of what the church should be and what it should look like. So as I thought about preaching, I literally just flipped through and just landed on the passage to read because it's a jump off in here where you can just jump off anywhere in the book of Ephesians and talk about the greatness of the glory of the church. So I'll grab this little nugget in chapter 3 beginning at verse 7. But just know that when you want to see the beauty of God's church, the book of Ephesians is just a great place, and I look at it to really give me this vision of what the church should be. So I'll read this little snippet, but I feel like I'm cheating because I feel like I could read the whole book of Ephesians this morning, and you will get a great picture of what the church will be. Ephesians chapter 3, verse 7, I became a servant of this gospel by the gift of God's grace given me through the working of his power. Although I am less than the least of all the Lord's people, this grace was given to me to preach to the Gentiles the boundless riches of Christ, and to make plain, here, key words here, to everyone the administration of this mystery, which for ages past was kept hidden in God, who created all things. His intent was that now, through the church, the manifold wisdom of God should be made known to the rulers and authorities in the heavenly realms, according to his eternal purpose that he accomplished in Christ Jesus our Lord. In him and through faith, in him we may approach God with freedom and confidence. I ask you, therefore, not to be discouraged because of my sufferings for you, which are your glory. Father, I pray that in the next few moments that you would be with us, speak to our hearts, tune our ears towards your voice, turn our hearts toward you that we may see, hear, and know all that you would have for us to do. Father, as we seek to be a part of your church and to build your church, I pray that we would be inspired by what we see in Ephesians, and that we would make known the manifold wisdom of who you are to this world. God, it's to that end that I pray that you would stand in my body and think through my mind, speak through my vocal cords, those things that you would have us say, know, and do. May the words of my mouth, meditations of my heart, be acceptable in thy sight. O Lord, you are our strength. You are our Redeemer. Have your way. In Jesus' name, amen. You've got to know that when you talk about the book of Ephesians, you're talking about two groups of people who didn't like each other and who didn't want to worship together, although they loved Jesus. They had experienced the power of the resurrection of Jesus Christ. They received the message, and they were talking about, I'm so in love with God. I'm so in love with God. I'm enjoying experiencing the resurrection power in my life. And then Paul says, all right, now that you're in relationship with God, you're also in a relationship with God's family. They're like, cool, we're down with that. We love family. We love getting together. Let's do it. Then he says, okay, and that family are now the Gentiles. That family is now the Jews. And now the Jews and Gentiles are in one family and one family in Christ. Wait a minute, hold up. I'm in with God, but if they in, then I don't want to be in. And Paul is like, well, that means you wasn't never in. It's a little theological nugget right there. We won't dig into that. But he's like, because a part of this gospel, and if you're going to receive the message of Jesus Christ, and if that's going to be real in your life, then you're a part of the family of God. And when you look at the family of God, it will just not be made up of people who look like you, who live like you, who vote like you. It's people that live across the aisle, that look differently, that live differently. But God says, I love them, and you got to love them too, because we're all one family. And that's what the gospel does. It not only transforms our lives, but it transforms how we see people. It says therein. He says, because the church, this family of God, this gathering of people who normally wouldn't have anything to do with each other, have been so overwhelmed and so transformed and so impacted by the gospel of Jesus Christ, it's changed them culturally. And now their cultural, natural nuances have been totally destroyed, and people who would normally separate now come together under the power and the authority of the gospel of Jesus Christ, because the gospel changes everything, including how we live. It changes how we live. So when they're coming together in this text, Paul is saying, listen, this is the great mystery. And when you come together and when you reflect this family of God, and when the world sees this, you will literally make known to the world the manifold wisdom of God. Translation, people will see the church, they will see the family of God and see God. They will see the church, they will see the family, and see the great wisdom of who God is. We can say it this way. If you ever want to see the glory of God, it's kind of like this. If you ever want to see the glory of Kobe Bryant, you want to see Kobe Bryant in his greatest glory, where do you go? You go to the Staples Center. Right before the playoffs of last season, you go to the Staples Center. You know? Because that last year, I don't know what that was, but you hit rewind and go before that, you'll see Kobe Bryant's greatest glory. His greatest glory has got that ball in his hand, fourth quarter, 57 seconds to go, and they're down by 3. Give it to Kobe, baby. You're going to see some glory. That's the deal, right? You want to see the glory of Whitney Houston. Glory of Whitney Houston. You go all the way back before Bobby Brown. You go all the way back before every little step, before my prerogative. No, it's somebody's prerogative, Bobby. You messed it up. Go all the way back. The Bodyguard soundtrack, baby. You see Whitney Houston, I Will Always Love You. That's her greatest glory. Take my life. Take me for what I am. Woo, that's it right there, Jack. You said, I never knew. That's it, boy. This is parenthetically on the X Factor, they did one of those songs. Did y'all see the X Factor last night? Not so much, y'all studied. All right, okay. If you want to see the glory of Whitney Houston, you got to go back to that. Paul says, if you want to see the glory of God, if you want to see the greatness of the glory of God, he says, it's the church. It's you and I. It's the gathering together of God's family, because we reveal, we show, we put on display the manifold wisdom of God. If you want to see the glory of God, Paul says it's the church. So when we look at the church, it's got to reflect the greatness of the glory of God. That's why reconciliation is so important. That's why it's paramount. Because if the church can't get reconciliation, then we really can't be the witness of God's manifold wisdom to the world. Because our church and who we are as the family of God, we're put on display to reveal and show who God is. And unless we want to show God as a racist, then we've got work to do. Wow, did he just say the R word? Oh yeah, I'm going to say many more. Just wait, I'm just getting started, Jack. So I'm going to switch now to more kind of a lecture type style. I'm just going to tell a little bit about my story and how, growing up, I began to get theological pictures of what the church was and how my theology of the church was kind of formed and then challenged. I grew up in Mississippi, Pearl, Mississippi, small town in Mississippi. I lived there all my life and just moved to California like 6 years ago. Grew up at Sweet Home Church of Christ Holiness USA in Pearl, Mississippi. How about that? Put that on. We had a long billboard. It was long. all black church. Mom played the piano at the church, community church. We didn't have small groups because we had fellowship on Sundays because we weren't like, we got to be out in an hour and 15 minutes. We do 2-3 hours and be good. So we didn't struggle with fellowship and community. We hung out all day. You know, this is it. You pick up my kids from school, we work together. So it was this beautiful community. But I'll never forget sitting in Sunday school class. And I'll just kind of give you snapshots of kind of growing up. I'll never forget in Sunday school class, my Sunday school teacher, it was there where I learned, while studying the scriptures in Sunday school, I'll never forget, she said, and as comfortable as you are, don't ever, ever trust white people. I learned that at church, Sunday school. And we was a good church. We didn't have, you know, crazy, we didn't handle snakes and nothing like that. No, it was a solid church. My Sunday school teacher in class, she was just teaching us. We had the teenage class, and we had the youth group, and she just said, I know, because most of us went to Pearl High School. And Pearl High School was a popular school, it was a really good school. It was predominantly white, less than 7% black. So most of us in our Sunday school class, we'd experienced being one of the few black people in the classroom. Y'all have no idea what that's like here at Biola. All 7 black people was like, hello. I'm the only one in class, and I'm tired of them asking me about my hair. You know what I mean? No, it did not take all day to do this. God. Anyway, all right. So my Sunday school teacher, knowing that, she was just saying, hey, when you're at school, because she worked at Pearl High School. She said, when you're at school, they're your friends. Be comfortable, be casual, be cool, but just don't really fully trust them. Then I begin to work that out in my own life. I begin to think, wow, I go to school and I have great white friends at school, but I've never been invited to a birthday party. Like never. As a matter of fact, the first time I ate dinner at a white person's house was 6 years ago when I moved to California. I had never been inside, didn't know how y'all lived, other than, MTV Cribs. And we'll talk about, what dinner was like. That's a whole nother story. I just needed her to cook those green beans just a little bit longer. They were, it's like, did these come fresh out the garden? They don't even move, Anyway, that's another deal. And I begin to think, theologically, why would a Christian woman say that? Well, she's from Mississippi. She grew up in the 60s. She remembered who Emmett Till was. Anybody know who Emmett Till is? You know who Emmett Till is? A few people? Emmett Till was a light-skinned young black dude, kind of like me. Emmett Till was known, he was a real cute guy, kind of like me. He had pretty eyes, just a little pretty kid. I believe, don't quote me on the facts, but I believe he was around 14, 13, 12. He wasn't quite 15, 16 years old yet. He was a young kid. And he's walking by this grocery store and passed by this white girl. And it was just this little chemistry that happened. I think either he looked at her and winked or she looked at him, because jungle fever has been going on for a long time. You know what I'm saying? Y'all don't know what jungle fever is, do you? Some of y'all know. I heard. I'm figuring it out, Jack. Had this little chemistry. And they kind of did this little flirt thing. Well, some of the older white guys in the store saw it. Later on, they grabbed Emmett Till. And I won't go into the graphic detail of what happened. But I'll just say they beat him beyond recognition. They took razor blades and did things to his skin. When you go home this evening, you can Google images of Emmett Till, and his face is about 3 or 4 times its size. His mother, when she saw his dead body, she said, I want to have an open casket funeral because I want the world to see what they did to my boy because he passed by and winked at a white girl. Emmett Till was probably my Sunday school teacher's age when that happened to him. she'd seen the regular injustices that would take place. So when she makes an absurd racist comment like, don't ever trust white people, she knew what she was talking about because that was her experience. And that was in church. Took that lesson and begin to see then how, although we are all Christians, church is drastically different. Like, I'm sure at First Baptist or First Pres or whatever the big white church was in town, their Sunday school teacher wasn't saying, hey, don't trust white people. You know what I'm saying? They probably should have, but they didn't, you know. They didn't have that same message. So I begin to see, all right, so we've got this gospel, this Jesus, but then we've got these different variations of his message, but we all carry and wear the same banner. And there are these strong divides. And then I noticed one Sunday, I said, hey, there's no white people at my church. We're just all black. And I go to white churches, and it's just kind of all white, and there's just segregation, and nobody's bothered by it. It's just normal. Because it's what's comfortable for everybody. And that began to shape my theology. I was like, okay, well, this is what's comfortable. This is what it is. This is just how it's supposed to be. Then I get to Bible college. And I'll give you another snapshot here. I'm sitting in Bible college, and I'm sitting in evangelism class. And I'm at an all-white institution. And one of the issues that come up, Mississippi, we still have the rebel emblem in our flag. So there was a big Civil War. And the South lost, but it's like they don't really act like they did. It's like they didn't know. So it's like, I'm not sure, you know we lost, right? You know, because they're like really proud of it, but it's like, we didn't win that game. You know what I mean? We didn't get the ring, we didn't get the bowl, it didn't happen, you know? So I remember there was this big thing that came out that said, let's vote to change our flag. To take that off the flag, because for me, and I'll have many people that'll argue with me, and that's cool, but for me, the war was about slavery. Because, I mean, you can melt it down different kind of ways, but at the end of the day, one side wanted slavery, the other side didn't. If the other side would have won, I wouldn't be here speaking at Biola today, you know? So in my mind, the war was about slavery. It was about states' rights to have slaves, which was, you know, personally a big deal to me, seeing that, you know, my people were the ones in question, you know? So sitting at a Christian college, but growing up in a black church, but now having theological conversations in mixed company. Because at my black church, in my black house, in our black living room, us eating black dinner, you know, having black conversation, this wouldn't have been an issue. You know what I mean? It just would have been like, duh, take it down. You know what I mean? And if another person passed by me with that bumper sticker on, I'm gonna throw a rock in the back of it. You know what I mean? It was like, it was clear. It was duh. You know what I mean? So here I am, though, at Bible college, once again, one of the few blacks sitting in the room, and it comes up during the cafeteria. And I'm thinking, oh, yeah, duh, take it down. And they were like, what? That's our heritage. And I'm like, what? Your heritage? I remember doing the census in Mississippi back in the early 90s, somewhere around there, and I got the job. You know, the census pays really well, like $10 an hour back then. It was the bomb. So I remember doing the census, but I remember going in these little rural areas where they would have bumper stickers with that flag on it, and then the caption on the side would say, let's go back to the old South. Now you got to imagine, in my black mind, I'm doing the sociological math, and I'm thinking, we go back to the old South. That just don't mean nothing good for me, you know? It's just all bad for me. So why would we want to go back there, you know? So when I see that flag, that's what that represents. So to be sitting around the cafeteria and have Christians, even my professors, saying, we're voting to keep our flag because that's our heritage, I'm thinking, wow. We all call him the same Jesus. We all function under the same banner. But how could we be so drastically apart on these cultural issues? Well, it didn't take long for us to figure out that they had never had that conversation with a black person in the room because they had no idea how racist they were being. And I had never had that conversation with white people in the room because I had no idea the gap between our understandings and our perspective of history. It was unbelievable. So I argued, and I had to resist the temptation to say, you white racist, because they were also my Christian brothers. And I couldn't do both. You see that? See, if I was in the world, if I didn't have the gospel transforming my life, I could easily just write on it and say, you white racist, forget you. And a couple other expletives, you know what I mean? Colorful language, nice black language. That stuff, we got that real good. It's the white language too, I know, I've seen some of the movies. But I couldn't just walk off. I couldn't do that. I couldn't just discredit them because that's my Christian brother. We both love Jesus. We both sit in chapel and worship together. We both lift our hands and talk about the greatness of the glory of God. So I just can't walk away and charge you for being a racist. I've got to work this out in community. So here we are in our evangelism class, and we have this project where the goal was for us to go to our churches and to critique our method of evangelism. So we go meet with our evangelism pastor, how we do outreach, and we critique their program. We understand what we do, and then we speak on that deal. So I never forget, we're bringing our reports back, and this one guy, Caleb, I never forget, he goes to all-white church in Raymond, Mississippi, and they do EE, Evangelism Explosion, which for those of you that don't know is when you go door to door, knock on the door, hey, how you doing? If you were to die tonight, would you go to heaven or to hell? And that's kind of like that it. No, have a cup of coffee, you know, it's just straight to heaven or hell. What's happening? What's up? Where you at? Where you at? We want to get you in tonight. And we got 6 more minutes before the bus picks us up, so make this quick, Henry. Are you in or are you out, you know? But I joke about it, but there have been tons of people who have accepted Christ, made real commitments to Christ with exposing evangelism. So it's not knocking that program. Whatever works, let's get them in. Let's build it up, dog. Get them in. Get them on the bus. Whatever. But what he said was they go door to door when they do that. But then he said, but when we get to a black person's house, we don't offer them the message of the gospel. Instead, we give them the business card of the local black pastor. And when they open the door and we see the black face, we say, hey, there's a great church up the street that you may really like. And I'm sitting in class fuming. I'm irate. I'm thinking, oh my God, that is the dumbest thing I've ever heard of in my life. How could you justify doing something so freaking idiotic? You know, I'm like going off in my seat. And this is a couple of years in Bible college, so I hadn't fully been sanctified yet, you know? So I'm still working on it. So those black expletives was about to rise up in my sanctified black soul. You know what I mean? So before I could stand up and I would think get in the line to talk about how terrible this method is, I hear the applause and the affirmation of my classmates saying, yeah, that's a good idea. It's great. Good job, Caleb. And I just sat silently in the classroom. And it really caused me to struggle because I said, Lord, I'm seeing something in here that I'm not seeing in here, but there's no tension. There's no struggle. There is this wide open embrace of church segregation and us choosing our comforts over the workings of the cross, and everybody's comfortable. And frankly, I'll just be honest, and I'll just say it like I said it then, nobody else is pissed but me. Nobody else feels disenfranchised but me. Nobody's offended but me. And the worst thing you can become is the angry black kid who's the only black kid in the classroom. You know what I'm saying? Y'all seen a couple of them in your class. Y'all know it's just like, yeah, she's good, but I remember in psychology class, she was really angry. So you don't want to become that person, but sometimes it's just hard not to become that person. Because you see these injustices and these gaps of understandings and this inability to have a real conversation about it. Are y'all with me this morning? You understand what I'm saying? So when I saw that, I said, something's got to be up. Something's wrong. Then I came to California. Moved to California. When I come to California, people just automatically assume, oh, you're from Mississippi. It's different here in California. It's different. It's not the same. We're not racist. I grew up across the street from a black person. We're friends. I know. Me and Shantae had a good time. We were good friends. Me, Shantae, and my white friend Becca, we all got together and we had a great time, and Shantae's mom loved me. It was so cool. And it is different. Mississippi and California are very differently. However, the racism and the dynamics here, if you look straight on, you may not see it as easily. But if you turn your head just a little bit to the side, you can see some of the same dynamics at play. Just drive the neighborhoods. You have these big, beautiful neighborhoods, which are mostly white and affluent. Sometimes you have blacks and obviously Asians who climb the ladder and they make it into those communities. But when you go to the lower income, it's black and Mexican. You drive the school dynamics. Most of the white kids are in the private schools. And in the failing schools that are just terrible, I mean, just terrible, black and Mexican kids. Go to the prisons, black and Mexican kids. And we all know white kids be stealing and smoking weed. No, I'm just playing, I'm just playing. So you begin to think, you're like, well, no, because it's not a DNA thing. It's not that they're born with an inability to make more money in their DNA. So you begin to do the math and you realize something is up. This is a systematic thing. And then you go to church. And in California, a place where anywhere in the world you should have diverse churches, just a flood of them. You should have tons of options because we got everything in California. We got folks that I never heard of in Mississippi. I never heard of Armenians. You know what I'm saying? I was like, Armenia? What? Where did y'all come from? We didn't even talk about y'all in class. How did y'all make it? I missed that week, you know what I mean? My first week in California, this great Armenian couple, Gil and Carrie Gazanian, we didn't have a car. We only had one car, and they gave us a car. They gave us a car. My mom had been loving Armenians ever since. Me too. I was like, you my people. We together. We together. Yeah, Jack. We good. We good, you know? But California, you got everything you can imagine, this beautiful array, this diversity, this great breadth, and you think, wow, if the kingdom of God could show forth anywhere, it's here, then you go to church. It's like, wow, really? It's like being in Mississippi all over again. But instead of just a white church and the black church, you got the white church, the black church, the Korean church, Chinese church, the African church. You just got all that. And nothing's wrong with that. So don't, if your church, especially if that's all that's in your neighborhood, that's all that's in your community. If that's all that's there, if you're in Iowa and you can throw a rock and still can't hit nobody of color, then hey, that's cool. You know what I'm saying? There are some places that are like that, you know, and that's cool. And especially if you're a minority, sometimes it's good to get that culture of it. So it's not a slam against that, but I'm just amazed that we don't have more. Especially when Paul says, the church should be the witness to the world, displaying the manifold wisdom of God, the boundless freedom that we find in Christ. If we can see that anywhere, we should be able to see it in church. While the world is trying to figure out race relations and how we get along and how do we cover the cultural gaps and how do we really deal with immigration, not just your political party line. Because in Mississippi, immigration was a non-issue to me. Immigration was, I was like, what's the deal? Illegal means illegal. Go back where you came from, go to jail, do not pass go, do not collect $200. This is easy for me. Then I moved to California. Had Mexican kids in my youth group that were undocumented. Life transformed by the gospel of Jesus Christ, and says, I want to go to college and I want to become a youth pastor. All right, let's go, man. Let's get you some money. Let's go. I can't. Because although I've been able to go to school and I've actually been able to get jobs, I can't go to college because I'm undocumented. What? See, now it's not just the easy answer. It's not just the go back to Mexico. He's like, my family is here. I've been here ever since I was 2 years old. I don't know anybody there. You're my family. This church is my family. This is where I belong. This is where I live. So what am I going to do? Am I going to say, go back? Am I going to call and report him? No, the system is broken. And we're supposed to always, as the body of Christ, bend towards grace. But since I didn't have anybody like that in my life and in my Christian community, I was ignorant. But I'm not ignorant anymore. So that forces us to get into legislature and to talk about the DREAM Act and talk about some of the things and to get out there with my black self, with my black voice in these rallies and these marches and say, hey, we need to change the system. Because I got kids that want to be youth pastors in my neighborhood that wants to transform lives and carry the gospel of Jesus Christ, but they can't because the system is broken. So we got to solicit attorneys in our church and say, can you help them get citizenship? Can you help navigate the red tape of our system to help him to see what chances he can get? That's the kind of stuff we have to do at our church. Because when you're in the diverse community and when we're called to display the manifold witness of God in the greatness of his mystery, that's the kind of stuff we're talking about. We got to show that message to the world. I never forget the election of the 2008 elections. So I go to Lake Avenue Church. It's a predominantly white church, but then we've got like 60% white, 65% white, and then 35, 40% everything you can imagine. And just kind of trying to figure out how we do life together. In the elections, oh my God. You know, you got Obama. And right before the election, I had this lady come in my office, and she was irate. She was extremely upset. And she was like, it was like being at Wesley College with the whole flag thing all over again. She was like, if you're a Democrat, you cannot go to heaven. She was like, Democrats cannot be Christians. And I was like, wow, half my family just went to hell. It's like, just in 5 minutes, Uncle Jimmy, he not in heaven no more. You just put Uncle Jimmy in hell. He just down there in hell now with all the other Democrats. Wow. And I voted Democrat, I've voted Republican, and I've been disappointed every time. So I don't have any God-like hopes or expectations on political parties, because if God wanted to transform this world through a political party, he did that, but he said he wanted to come and establish his own kingdom. So he didn't come riding the back of an elephant or a donkey. He came declaring his glory. Oh, I should have had more claps than that. Come on, don't be offended, your little Republican Democrat self. Get over yourself. Because this cuts beyond our political lines. But that's how I was growing up. Blacks were Democrats and whites were Republicans. And whites were Christians and black were Christians, but we couldn't talk about the middle issues. So I got like 2 minutes left. So what am I saying? I'm saying until we can come together as the body of Christ, and until we can commit to having the hard conversations, we will not be the church that reflects God's greatest glory. And in Southern California, you're at this Bible college. I dare not have you go to class after class and you go and build a white church or a black church or Asian church and be comfortable with not having a cross-cultural dialogue that the Bible calls us to. If I don't do anything else this morning, I want to make you uncomfortable, and hopefully I can tick you off just a little bit, because the church is not based on your comforts and you getting around people that live like you, look like you, and vote like you, so you can have the most comfortable worship experience possible. The Jews and Gentiles, they didn't want to worship together. They didn't like each other. They had different styles of music. They had their own way of doing stuff. The Gentiles, they trying to have fellowship dinners. The Gentiles is eating ribs and ham hocks and stuff. And the Jews are like, what in the world, man? What are y'all doing? That's crazy. And they like, yo, mistake of the gospel, Jack. Come on, you've been missing stuff. It ain't unclean, dog. Come on, get some of this. Get some of this. You know what I mean? And the Jews coming with them little dried up string beans that ain't got no bacon in them. You know what I mean? The fellowship dinners were crazy, man. And they get together, the worship team try to get together and try to plan music. And they be like, we want to do this kind of music. That's why Paul says we're going to sing hymns, psalms, and spiritual songs. We're going to sing it all. And eventually we might get to something you like. You understand what I'm saying? So I dare not have you leave Bible college going to build God's church based on what's comfortable for people. You need to tick people off every now and then. You need to challenge people. And church is not about you coming in and you liking what happened. At least once a month, if folks don't leave angry, that means you're probably not preaching this book. Because this book should challenge you, it should frustrate you, and it should irritate you sometimes. That's what Paul is doing to the Jews and Gentiles. He says the wall of hostility is broken by the gospel of Jesus Christ. So my challenge to you, build churches, build communities where the walls of hostility and the divides are broken through the gospel of Jesus Christ, and we work through our issues as brothers and sisters of Christ with the gospel as the center, not as our race, not our politics, not our culture, but the gospel at the center, and we lay everything else down in submission to the work of the Lord Jesus Christ on the cross. Thank you, guys.
We hope you enjoyed this message. Biola University offers a variety of biblically centered degree programs, ranging from business to ministry to the arts and sciences. Learn more at biola.edu.